Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Culture Works live stream series. I'm Chester Elton, and I'm here with my dear friend and colleague and co-author, Adrian Gostick. Wave to the crowd.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, listen, we love doing this every month. We bring you an idea about how you can create a better workplace, become better leaders, better teammates, hopefully even just a little bit of a better person. And today we're going to talk a little bit about 3 ways how you can lead through change. And, Adrian, you're often quoted as saying, get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, which is the dumbest thing you can say because it's uncomfortable is in the word. You're going to be uncomfortable. But with all this unprecedented change, and I know that word's overused over the last 2 or 3 years, we're still struggling with dealing with a lot of change. And you wrote this wonderful article in Forbes magazine with 3 really good tips on how to do that. So why don't you kick us off and give us a little background as to why you wrote the article and why people should follow you on Forbes if they aren't already.
Well, you and I, how many times will we go to speak to an audience this year? 60, 80 times, the two of us. Yeah. And every single organization we get invited into tell us, now, guys, we're going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
It's like, everybody's going through change. Maybe you got some new senior leadership. Maybe you have acquired somebody. Maybe you're merging. Maybe you've got a new competitor. Maybe you're doing a new computer system, whatever it is. Everybody's going through change. You want people to do things in a new way. And the trouble is, it's just in that moment of change when we want people to buy in and believe, and yet their faith is often challenged because leaders don't often do this very well, this idea of change.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking this morning, I woke up and I've got all my routines and everything. And my wife and my son said, so how you doing? And I said, not great, which isn't my normal answer, right? And as we talked through it, there was just a lot going on, in our family, in our faith, in the business and travel and all kinds of stuff. And it really is. Even I think the most optimistic and the most engaged people, we have those moments where we step back and go, man, there's just a lot going on. Yeah. Now, you talk about, and I love this expression, I've used it many times, that the masterpiece is in the mess.
Yeah.
Expound on that a little bit, you Renaissance man.
Well, the point is, because people will push back and say, look, we are in uncertain times. I can't give certainty to my people. No, of course you can't. But what you can do is make people feel like you're going into the dark together.
Right.
We're holding hands going into here versus, you're all on your own. And so what we're really thinking about as leaders is how can we help them find the masterpiece that is in all this mess? One of the people we wrote about in our book, Anxiety at Work, is Lutz Zob from Microsoft, who was leading a 400-person training team for Microsoft, a multi-billion-dollar organization. They went into different organizations and would train people on how to use the Microsoft suite of products. Well, all of a sudden, they started debating at higher levels than they were. Are we doing this wrong? Should we be going into K through 12, into schools to train? Well, it's a completely different mindset, completely different skill set. And Lutz didn't know. So he posed the question to all of his people, and they began debating, if you remember. And Andre would come in with an idea, and Susan would come in with an idea. They'd argue with each other, and Lutz would say, okay, great discussion. Now, Susan, switch places, and Andre, switch, and then now argue it from the other perspective. And by the end, they would say, we forgot who was arguing for what. We just wanted to get the best ideas out there.
What I really appreciate about that whole scenario, and we've used that as a case study many times, is, and you kind of forget who should get the credit. It's a collective win. And I love that. It's also very important while you're going through the mess to make it safe to have those ideas and bring it forward, isn't it? We've got Ali, who's joining us from, I actually didn't say where he was joining us from, but where he talks about technology and the advancement of that. We're ideating now virtually. Any tips on that? When Zev was doing all that, it was all in person. And you can whiteboard stuff, and there's that idea of being together, right? How do you get that ideation? How do you help manage the mess when half your team's not in the room or in five
Yeah.
different time zones, right?
And we've seen this, right? We've seen teams that have to work either remotely or, and yeah, of course, ideation is better in person, but that's not practical for many teams nowadays. So simple little things that you can do. One is making sure that everybody is involved. You ask good questions. But one of the things when you're beginning to ideate and you're starting through change is the simple little thing. Why don't you play something at the beginning? Play, 5 minutes of Rudy. Play 5 minutes of a funny movie. Do something that gets the creative juices flowing. And we can use technology to our advantage to kind of have a little something out there. Also, one of the things too is that, when we start debating, there's typically one or two dominant voices.
Right.
Um, at that point, great. Stan, I think we've heard enough right now. Let's hear from, so and so and so and so that we haven't heard from yet, and making sure that every voice is heard. And one of the questions you ask is, what are we missing? What haven't we discussed yet?
Yeah, that inclusiveness I think is so important. I really like your idea of playing a little something fun. I
Mhm.
got a post from our friend Marshall Goldsmith today. It was a clip from an old TV series, The Munsters. We're really dating ourselves. If you know what that show is, you're clearly well over 50 years old. At any rate, and it was just this little conversation about, you know, it doesn't matter what you look like or who you are as long as you have a big heart. I mean, these wonderful little
Yeah.
messages. To your point, it breaks the cycle of all the things I've got on my to-do list and says, I'm going to take a deep breath and be creative and have some fun while we're doing it. Well, the next thing you talk about is in the mess, in all of this change, what is it we're really trying to do? And what are the things we need to get done most urgently? That burning platform.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, this is one of the things that so many leaders forget is the why behind the decision. Why, we're introducing a new sales strategy. Well, okay, why? Well, it doesn't matter, just do it.
Right.
And people don't buy in unless there's a clear and compelling reason. Now, we use this in our book All In. Now, the whole idea of the burning platform is, you're working on an oil derrick out in the North Sea, and the drop down below to the ocean is about 100 feet. It's scary. It's cold. The only reason you're going to make that jump is if there's a fire burning behind you.
Right.
Well, how often do we introduce things to our people, but we don't provide the fire? We don't say, this is why we have to change. So that really is something. Now, without scaring people, we have to instill a sense of urgency, making it clear that, look, if we don't change, we're going to be eaten up by competitors. We're going to this or this. We have to explain why we're doing this and really define what our new mission is, or what the purpose is of undertaking this new endeavor.
And what everybody's role is. You talk about, hey, we need this, and there's a deadline, and we're going to need this, and as we come together as a collective, we can make this happen. A quick moment for a commercial. This is brought to you by thecultureworks.com. It's the consulting, training, and coaching company that Adrian and I founded, gosh, 20 years ago now. It's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? And actually, yeah, about that. Anyway, time flies. Join us at thecultureworks.com. Follow Adrian on Forbes. He writes a weekly column that really is wonderful. And sign up for our gratitude journal as well. There's lots of good stuff at thecultureworks.com that will help you become better leader, better teammate, and develop a better culture. Well, you talk about three things in your article, and the third one is probably my favorite.
Really, I didn't think this
There.
would. Yeah.
Yeah, is get your team to cheer for each other.
Yeah.
We're usually really good about cheering for the star player as leaders. We highlight those kinds of things, and yet when you've got a really good culture of gratitude, it's where you've got people cheering for each other. What are some of the ways that you talk about how you can get that kind of esprit de corps?
Well, I remember, one Harvard study that found that in cultures of high innovation, there's just simply a lot more thank yous.
Right.
And it's thank you for sometimes even for counterintuitive things like making a mistake, which is a learning opportunity. It's thank you for pushing the envelope. Thank you for suggesting an idea. Here's why we thought about it. Here's why it wouldn't work. There's a lot of communication. So thank you comes in many forms, and especially in the form of I'm listening to you. When we wrote our book Leading with Gratitude, the first step is soliciting ideas and acting on those ideas if at all possible. So that's really where the beginning of gratitude begins is, or really where the beginning of gratitude starts is that idea of listening and then doing all we can to thank people for their input.
Isn't it so interesting that so much of what we talk about, whether it's managing the mess or dealing with the burning platform, the why behind and gratitude, it comes back to simple communication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are we taking the time to make sure that we're communicating with everybody on the team and we're reinforcing those good behaviors with thank yous? We've got a lot of gratitude practices in our practice. I'm curious, what are some of your favorites? What are your go-to things when you want to express gratitude or cheer somebody on the team? What are your go-tos, Adrian?
Yeah, no, you are very good at the handwritten note. You're very good at sending those. And now and then people will just your circle will just get these handwritten notes. I'm more of the electronic type. And, but the thing is, it doesn't matter, whatever works for you. I'm more, send an electronic note. I remember when we interviewed Ken Chenault from American Express, the CEO of American Express, he carried around a little notebook that at the end, and he would write down, "Ooh, Joyce had a pretty amazing idea there." Then at the end of the day, he would send little notes, whether they're handwritten or typed up, and just saying, "Hey, I really appreciated your comment today in that meeting." You think people would print those out? They would stick them up on there, and people would have walked through fire for Ken Chenault because they knew that he knew them, right?
Yeah. One of the things I love, and we talk about it a lot, are random acts of kindness.
Mhm.
You know, I love chocolate bars. Now, Adrian and I grew up in Canada. We call them chocolate bars. In the United States, they're candy bars. If you're tuning in from India, I'm not sure what you call them there. But the point is that um, I'm trying to cut back on my sugar intake. So one of the ways I do that is I give it away to other people and say, I know it's not good for me, but it's probably good for you. And find little packages of chocolate bars that I send people randomly. Our chief of staff, Christy Lawrence, is one of the best gift givers of anybody I've ever met. She'll figure out in the first 10 minutes what it is that you really like. And for me, it's obviously the color orange. She sent me wonderful things that are just orange, just randomly out of the blue. So find out what it is that you can do to really install that culture of gratitude. And we've got a good point here. Subra Shukla, I'm sure I butchered your name there, said spending time with an individual allows you to learn more about them. Have a cup of coffee. That is such a great practice.
Get
Hey,
to know their stories. Yeah.
yeah, know their stories and say, hey, look, if you had a day to do anything, what would you do?
Yeah.
Um, Lisa said, mine is recognizing a specific task done by someone rather than a generic thanks.
Yeah.
What do we always say, Adrian? General praise has no impact on people. Be
Good
specific.
job, everybody. Yeah. Whatever it is you're doing and whoever you are. Yeah. Hey,
You're the
before we
Tower of
close,
Pisa. Yeah.
the last story I talked about in here is our dear friend Kent Murdoch, who was our CEO. And when we worked for the OC Tanner Company, now this was many years ago now, and the company was going through a big SAP transition. And we've seen these, right? A lot of the companies we work with, they go through these huge technology changes, and they're crushing. All of a sudden, you're not sending out invoices to your clients, you're not receiving money, everything shuts down. And the company was going through some tough stuff, and he gathered all of his 2,000 employees together here, and he was very vulnerable. He said this. He says, "I'll tell you how we're going to save this company. I don't know, but if human ingenuity can bring about a miracle, we're going to do it." He said, "My power doesn't include all the ideas that we need. My brain doesn't contain all the answers, but I'll know a good one when I hear it, and I'll recognize that person for it." He said, "Our future is in your heads collectively. Together, we can be Albert Einstein. We can be
Yeah.
geniuses." He says, "Do you think we can do it?" And ideas started coming in. And that's what you have to do, right? You have to be vulnerable, and you have to tell people, look, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great way to end our little session here. Hey, we want to thank all of you that tuned in, and hopefully you can share this with some of your friends and coworkers. It's our 15 minutes from the cultureworks.com. We really appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully there were 2 or 3 things that can help you be a better leader, develop a better culture. Again, follow Adrian and his wonderful work in Forbes. He writes these wonderful weekly articles. We've also got our gratitude journal on LinkedIn, and our books, Leading with Gratitude and Anxiety at Work, available at fine bookstores everywhere. Follow us, and Adrian, we'd love to speak, whether it's virtually in person. Wrap it up and take us home with hire us to speak at your conference.
Well, yeah, we'd love to come speak at one of your conferences, virtually or in person. And of course, pick up a copy of one of our books. You'll learn a little bit more about us by reading All In or Leading with Gratitude or Anxiety at Work. So thanks, everybody, for joining us today.